It's Red Eye Radio. Talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios. For Gary McNamara and Eric Harley, Dan Mandis, this is Red Eye Radio.
866-90 Red Eye is the phone number, 866-907-3339. Appreciate you listening. Gary and Eric, they return next Sunday night, Monday morning. And I want to just play this piece of audio. It's one of my favorite audio pieces I've had for the last week. I played it locally on my morning show in Nashville, Tennessee on Super Talk 99.7 at WTN. By the way, follow me, if you would, please, on X. And also you can find me on Facebook. But I love the sentiment of this fake campaign ad. Listen to this. It's great.
Just a little bit of this and a little bit of that.
Have you ever thought to yourself, I wish my small town could be more like the urban slums of California? Why can't there be more trash and feces on the streets of this sleepy little town? Well, we've got the solution. Dipshizzy. By voting to install Dipshizzy, you can help every small town in America become more like the dumpster fire that are the cities of California. Dipshizzy won't just destroy small towns either. It works wonders in the countryside, too. By pushing socialist economic policies, Dipshizzy can rapidly create inflation, making everything more expensive. Ask yourself if Dipshizzy is right for you and your community. Because why settle for the good life when you can have a California dumpster fire?
Dipshizzy is not intended to treat, prevent, or cure any disease. In fact, Dipshizzy will probably make your life much worse. Side effects of Dipshizzy include overdrawn bank accounts, illegal immigration, and communist-style government. Consult with your father before starting Dipshizzy. Do not start Dipshizzy if you enjoy the First or Second Amendment. If you're a dude who likes to wear thongs, Dipshizzy may be right for you.
You know what I love about that is when it says, ask your father if you should start Dipshizzy. And the reason why I like that particular line, and some of you folks may have heard me talk about this before, but when I was growing up, my dad was a Republican. He was a Ronald Reagan conservative, and I was in high school at the time during the Reagan era. I was in a junior high and high school, and I was a liberal because, quite frankly, I didn't know any better. And my dad, over the years, he would just like slowly but surely, he would show me the light as far as conservative values go. And so by the time I got into college and I started actually making money, because I was working high school and college, I started working at the age of 15. And here I am now today at the age of 56, basically working a couple of different jobs. But I didn't realize the impact about who you vote for and its impact on your wallet and the money you have until I started working. And so my dad, who for years, he would just like pull out his hair because his son was listening to that rock and roll music. I had long hair and I was talking about getting a tattoo, and I was a liberal. And slowly but surely, instead of yelling at me and instead of, trying to just berate me into submission, he let me find my own path. And he and I spoke about politics often. And we spoke about, things like art, the military, the difference between conservative and progressive values. We spoke about all of those things. But it wasn't until there was 1 year, I think I was maybe 20, 21 years old, and I was working about 4 or 5 different jobs, and I'm not kidding, about 4 or 5 different jobs. And I was doing my taxes, and my dad was helping me with my taxes. And I found out that I was going to have to pay well over $1,000 in taxes. And I couldn't really understand why. And he explained it to me because when you work so many different jobs, you're accumulating, in totality, a lot of money, and you're not paying enough taxes to be able to, fulfill that obligation to your government. But then we started talking about what the tax money, where the tax money goes, and, just all of that kind of stuff. And I began to realize, because he started throwing in some of the things, and I forget what they were at the time, but he started throwing in some of these things that my taxpayer dollars were going to at the time. And I think, let's see, 86, 88, I don't know, Clinton may have been in office. I'm not sure who was in office at the time. Or no, it would have been, who would have been in office, I think. Maybe it was still Reagan. But I'm looking at the taxpayer dollars, and I'm wondering, where this money went to. And he starts going down the list of all of the things that the government was spending my taxpayer money on. And there was a gleam in his eye, as heartbroken as he was, that his son was going to have to somehow figure out where he was going to get over $1,000, because I didn't have $1,000 to my name. And so as all of that is going on, and I'm pacing around the room. I'm pacing around the room. My stepmom is trying to give me a cookie to make me feel better. And my dad said, son, if you were conservative, you would understand the implications of, taxes and where the money goes and all this other kind of stuff. And so he used it as sort of a learning opportunity for me, and tried to teach me about conservative values, but in a more constructive kind of way. And I loved that. And he listened to talk radio. My dad listened to talk radio. Years and years and years and years and years. He listened to talk radio. And I was that kid in the backseat of the car listening to 790 KABC in Los Angeles, because that was my dad's station. And so this was, sort of one of those moments where when I started hosting talk shows, sadly, my dad had passed on by that point. But I've often, wondered if my dad would, like my show, because he was a big talk radio fan. I hated talk radio when I was a kid, because I'm in the backseat of my dad's car and I'm listening to, from a 10, 12, 13-year-old, all these old guys are just bloviating. Play some music, Dad. Play some music. Play some Ozzy, right? So it's kind of funny when I finally began to realize, yeah, you know what? I remember the day. I called him up and I said, Dad, I think the conversion to conservatism is complete. And I think that was probably one of, although he didn't say it at the time, probably was one of the proudest moments of his life. Because I think that he probably felt like, well, mission accomplished, mission completed. I've turned my son into a, God-fearing, conservative, Reagan-loving Republican. And, I didn't have to beat it into him. He just learned through, tough times, to be honest with you. Because I think that's how, we're seeing that with some of these, Never Trumpers for Trump movement, where we talk about, and I've been talking about this the last couple of nights, where I love that kind of a movement. Because my journey when I was a kid and then a young adult, my journey was like a lot of those Never Trumpers that are now supportive of Donald Trump. Because they had to learn about how bad it got under Joe Biden and Kamala Harris to realize, that Donald Trump, not so bad after all. I would gladly accept some mean tweets if it meant I could go back to that economy and so forth. It's what I always find interesting about the journeys that people take is what led you to where you are now. Because there's a lot of people that go from, Democrat to Republican, sometimes back to Democrat as well. And you know what? That's some people's journey. I've never veered back towards the Democrat or the liberalism or whatever you want to call it that I was in high school and my early years of college. Never once have I thought about going back, not to vote for Bill Clinton, certainly not to vote for Barack Obama, and obviously not voting for Joe Biden either. Now, Jeremy is in Washington State on Red Eye Radio. Hey, Jeremy, go ahead.
So I'm just strapping down a load right now, getting ready to head out, hauling some lumber today. And it just, listening to you and listening to some of the more logical talk radio, it's like you hear some of these people call in that literally suffer from Trump derangement syndrome is what it feels like. It's like there's no logical thought pattern to their brain. They can't deduce reason. It's just the hatred and the vitriol for this person makes them look past everything else that's logical in life. And I don't know, man, it blows my mind. I mean, and I know you see that and you understand it because you take the calls, but it's like, what are we going through right now? It's very strange. Is it social media? Is it what's
you know what it is?
Or has it always been that way?
No, it has not always been that way. Trump brought out the hatred in the left and the media because he wasn't supposed to be the winner in 2016. It was supposed to be Hillary Clinton. Remember when all of this was going on, when Trump was running, I think that he had one newspaper, I forget which one it was, but one newspaper, I think it was in Nevada, that endorsed Donald Trump for president. The rest endorsed Hillary Clinton. So when Donald Trump won, then that just everybody lost their ever-loving minds because the media in Hollywood, they're supposed to be the kingmakers. And obviously they didn't want Donald Trump, but, the great unwashed of America did. And so the Trump derangement syndrome, there's a number of different things that are going on. Number one, you do have some Republicans that are anti-Donald Trump, and that's fine. They've got their reasons. But you have the Democrats who see Donald Trump, and he is the guy who stole the election from Hillary Clinton. And so no matter what the man does, Trump derangement syndrome will always be infused in them. Same with the Democrat parties, obviously, and same with the media in Hollywood as well. And you're right when you talk about how it's just simply not logical. When you look at the issues and when you look at the fact, and this is what's so interesting, when you look at the fact that on all of these different issues, Donald Trump's policies are favored over, his views on the policies are favored more than Kamala Harris and Joe Biden and their views on the policy. I mean, the border is the perfect and easiest example where the American people recognize the need for a wall. They recognize the need for tougher border security, and they recognize the need for a mass deportation. The American people agree. I mean, it was like 70%. There was a poll that came out a while ago. 70% of the American people firmly believe that Donald Trump is right on immigration. They also recognize that the economy was far better under Donald Trump than it currently is under Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. They also recognize the failed pullout of Afghanistan. They also recognize the fact that we're now stuck in a couple of wars under Joe Biden. And so you're right. The American people, they seem to support Donald Trump's policies, but not the man. That is indicative of Trump derangement syndrome because it doesn't make any sense. That's why for a lot of people who are on our side of the aisle, we talk about the need to stay on message because for Donald Trump, he has the right policy. And if he's got the right policy, if he's got the right track record, then he is definitely somebody who has a message, and he's got a message that is very easily sellable or sold to the American people because he's got scoreboards. So, you know what? As far as trying to understand Trump derangement syndrome, I've stopped trying to understand it. I can only fight it, and I appreciate the call. Thank you very much. 866-90-RED-EYE is the phone number, 866-907-3339. Got a lot more straight ahead on Red Eye Radio.
This morning's USDA Farm Report is brought to you by House Products. Tested, trusted, guaranteed since 1920.
We've heard all about the obesity epidemic in this country with upwards of 60% of people overweight, but it's not just people, it's our pets.
Yes, we're seeing the same trend. 30 to 40% of animals are overweight, and 20% or so are in that obese category.
Dr. Susan Nelson, the veterinarian at Kansas State University, and she says there's definitely a correlation here between more of us being overweight and our pets.
Yeah, my personal belief, yes, there's a big connection. Kind of just like us, there's a lot of palatable foods out there, and fat usually makes them more palatable, and so we like to eat them. Less exercise. We just have less time for exercise, so the dogs don't get to go out for the walks as often with their owners, and so they're laying around the house watching TV while the owners are too, and usually snacking.
And our pets gradually become too fat, which Dr. Nelson says can bring on all kinds of problems and cut the lifespan of our pets. She says get your pet into the vet's office regularly. They'll help you with tips on diet and exercise for your pet, of course. Gary Crawford for the U.S. Department of Agriculture, Washington.
This report brought to you by Cenex Fuels and Lubes.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90-RED-EYE.
Eight 866-90-RED-EYE is the phone number. In for Gary and Eric, Dan Mandis here, and there in Little Rock, Arkansas is Steve. Steve, thanks for holding on. Go ahead, sir.
Good morning, Dan. How are you?
I'm good, man. Go ahead.
I think we need to call Kamala on her lies. And last time I checked, we control the House, and the Senate's a dead heat, so she'd be the tiebreaker. Let's make New Mexico a law. Let's make building the wall a law. Let's repeal the EV mandates. They'll pass the House, and then when they get to the Senate, if she's not lying, cast the tie-breaking vote. And if it truly is the new Democrat methodology, it'll pass without her being a tie-breaking vote.
Yeah, it's like let's see her put her money where her mouth is, right? Like call her bluff.
Yes. Yeah, that's the one I just sent you on X.
Oh, very good. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. You know, there perhaps are different ways to try to smoke out Kamala Harris. It is going to be interesting. I way earlier in the broadcast, I think it was in the first hour, kind of making fun of her flip-flops. I think Flip-Flopula would be a good name for Kamala Harris. People keep trying. Well, now that I've said it a second time, I don't think that's a very good name. Thank you, Steve, though, for calling Kamala Flip-Flopula. No, they said that doesn't work. It sounded a lot better in the first hour, but I think I was a lot less tired in the first hour than I am now here in the last. Let's say hello to Carol in Las Vegas on Red Eye Radio. Hey, Carol, go ahead.
Oh, hey, Dan. Thank you for having me on. I called about a different topic, but I think I came up with a great nickname for Kamala Harris, and Donald Trump can have this nickname free of charge.
Go ahead.
Kamala.
Kamala. Wait, Kamala.
No, Kamala.
Like she's
start with like a K-O-N, like a con. Like
con,
C-O-N,
like a con job. Sure, Kamala. Okay, very good. I don't know why Donald Trump is having a hard time branding Kamala Harris. Like there's a thousand possibilities, but like just one hasn't stuck. And the reason why it hasn't stuck is because, you know, she hasn't stuck to any real issue or frankly any real personality. I played earlier the various accents of Kamala Harris over the past couple of months. Anyway, go ahead, Carol, with your question or comment.
Well, I was hoping, I came up with an idea about the debate and I was hoping maybe you could try to get it out on social media so the Trump campaign could see it could take my suggestion because I think it's a good one. I'm concerned about the debate because we all, you know, people, former Democrat, but now I'm a Trump supporter. I follow conservative media and TV and the radio, such as your program. And we know that the head of ABC News is best friends with Kamala Harris and her husband, Doug Emhoff. But the general public, maybe Democrats that are open to voting for Trump and independents, they don't know that. So even though there's no opening statement, I just hope that he'll make that known that, hey, just as a disclaimer, she's best friends with the head of ABC News, and I hope this is fair, but let everybody know before he answers the first question.
Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios. Now, for Gary McNamara and Eric Harley, here is Dan Mandis.
866-90 Red Eye is the phone number, 866-907-3339. Yes, indeed. Dan here in for Gary and Eric. I'll be starting my morning show in Nashville, Tennessee here in a few minutes, 99.7 WTN.com. We also stream the broadcast on Facebook and also YouTube as well as Twitter, Twitch, and again at 99.7 WTN.com. So we are everywhere, as are Gary and Eric. And this is Jason in Boise, Idaho on Red Eye Radio. And go ahead, Jason. Thanks for calling in.
Yeah, thank you so much. Hey, listen, I am a college student, actually, and I'm looking to get into politics. I don't really have any opinions. It's not really something that was big in my family. But one thing I've noticed a lot is that Republicans seem to be I've noticed that prices have gone up in grocery stores, and Republicans seem to say that Kamala Harris is the reason for that. I just don't understand the economics of it. I don't know, like, what Kamala Harris and Joe Biden have done that have caused prices to go up and have caused inflation. So I don't know if she gets elected, if it will, continue going up. I do know that the Trump years were better for me financially than the Biden years, so I am leaning toward Trump. But I just want to know more specifically, like, what are they doing to cause inflation to go up?
Hey, first of all, Jason, did you say you want to get into politics?
Yeah, so I am interested because I'm old enough to vote now, and I'm a server. I'm waiting tables as I'm going. And what really got my attention was Trump saying no tax on tips, and then of course Kamala adopted that. But yeah, I'm just kind of interested. I don't know how to use my vote because I don't know anything about economics or, I'm just trying to learn. So I'm listening to left radio. I'm listening to right radio. I just don't know where to vote for right now.
So Kamala Harris, she's the vice president and she is trying to be the president. Joe Biden brought two big spending bills to Congress. He had the American Rescue Plan right out of COVID, and he also had the Inflation Reduction Act, right? So those were two massive spending plans that Joe Biden wanted to implement. And so ultimately it passed the House of Representatives, it passed the Senate, and Kamala Harris, who is now running as the candidate for the Democrats, she was the tie-breaking vote in the Senate. Now, this is important because those two massive spending bills is what caused inflation to go up. So when you talk about how did Kamala Harris and Joe Biden, how did they cause all of the grocery prices to rise and inflation to go up? Interest rates, of course, are a lot higher now as well. It's because the spending plans that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris put in place, from artificially infusing stimulus checks into the economy to massive spending plans, that is what caused prices to go up. So their actions, and specifically Kamala Harris and her signing of those two bills to get it out of the Senate, because, again, she was the tie-breaking vote, that is what caused the prices to go up. That's what caused it. So, and if you read, if you ask some of these economists out there, economists on both sides of the aisle will tell you that the American Rescue Plan, it was so massive, it was so huge that, yes, it did cause inflation. It caused prices to go up. And I do know, by the way, I feel for you because, Jason, I understand that when you are in college, you don't know a lot about the economy, you're just learning, you're doing the absolute right thing. You are checking out both the left and the right, and then you come up with your own interpretation of the news. That's what I still do. That's the smart thing to do.
And I am kind of frustrated too, not just with Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, but I do feel a little frustrated with Trump too. I know that he is responsible, just from the left radio that I've been listening to, that he's responsible for raising the national deficit very significantly. I mean, not as much as Obama, but a very high number. And
but remember,
I hear Kamala blaming the inflation on price gouging, which was confirmed by Kroger executives to be the case. And Kroger is a big company where I live. So I'm just kind of like, I do believe that Kamala Harris and Joe Biden could have contributed to inflation. But for me, at least, and with my limited economic knowledge, it just sounds also like a little bit more believable that the people who run the grocery stores set the prices, and they might just be setting them a little high and gouging the middle class a little bit.
So a couple of things. Number one, yes, Donald Trump, and I've said this often, and I'm a supporter of Donald Trump, he spent a lot of money. Remember, he was rebuilding the military. That's number one, because it's not only the money that was spent, but what was it spent on? So, number one, Trump did rebuild the military. However, he did spend a lot of money. Also, Trump was dealing, remember, with COVID. So he had an economy that was absolutely in tatters. He did have to spend a lot of money on stimulus packages, help Americans through COVID. That's number one. Number two, when you talk about price gouging and when you talk about the grocery stores and how Kamala Harris wants to put in these price controls, these government price controls. Well, that's communism. And so what that's going to do is that is going to cause shortages. We've seen that time and time again. Also on the price gouging, I don't buy the price gouging argument. I don't. And you can disagree with me if you want. That's fine. But when you look at the profit margins.
You don't buy the price gouging argument?
No, I don't. Because when you look at
but can I ask what your reasoning is for not believing it?
Yeah, because I know that. I know that for grocery stores, they have a very slim margin for profit, and also you've got competition. Competition is built into grocery stores. So if, for example, if Kroger is charging too much money, if they are price gouging, then I can just go to, I don't know, Publix. I can go to Stater Brothers. I can go to, whatever other supermarket. I can go to Walmart, for the love of Pete. So there's safeguards built into capitalism that prevents price gouging. There's plenty of competition.
That's
competition
true.
Competition is the answer to price gouging, because you got all these different grocery stores where you can buy different things.
That's true. I can definitely see that. I feel like there is a belief among a lot of Democrats that these CEOs in these grocery store companies, a lot of them are under a monopoly. Is the theory behind some Democrats, or that they meet together and they agree to set prices substantially high so that they all can remain rich. And the other thing that I somewhat prescribe to is I just have a hard time getting behind Donald Trump too, because he was a billionaire and he was raised on a silver spoon. I don't know if I can back him as a middle class person trying to survive and pay for college and everything with holes in my shoes, because the man wears Tom Fords. That's the other thing that I'm critical of Trump about, is just it's not his fault that he grew up rich or anything like that. I just don't really feel like he knows what it feels like to be in the middle class today.
Well, Jason, let me
like the idea of redistribution of wealth. I think that what you said too about how price gouging is communism. I think that if you go overboard with it, it can be communism. But if you don't have any kind of regulations, you end up with like a Rockefeller Carnegie type of era where they control the economy, they have super high monopolies, and then they jack up prices. And that's why Teddy Roosevelt had to go in and break those up. Was it communism then?
Okay, hold on, Jason. So you're throwing a lot at me. So number one, did you say that you believe in redistribution of wealth?
I like the idea. I just don't know how it could be executed.
All right, hey Jason, hey Jason, hold on. Hey, hold on. So I'm short $50. I want you to give it to me right now.
Yeah. So and that's where I believe it can't really necessarily be like there's no right way to execute it. But to me at least, I'm not a fan of we'll stick with the Kroger example. They're charging me $7 for a bag of chips. There's no way it costs anywhere near $7 to make and receive that bag of chips.
So go to Walmart.
So I know their profit margin is still, somewhat large, and I know it's not the cashier that's going to be getting a huge chunk of that profit margin.
Right.
Sorry, it's the CEO and the people who are being accused of the price gouging. And so I don't like this idea that they can, that they have multiple homes and things like that. Obviously, I don't believe that we should completely redistribute wealth so that we're all even, because that is communism. But I do like the idea of setting some kind of limits and taxes so that they price gouge, or so that they're not exploiting their workers necessarily. Because I work for people like that, and when I go to the store and I deal with the cashier, I know the cashier's working for people like that.
Well, hey, Jason, so
like it's just a lot.
So okay. So you said something about how you didn't like that people own multiple homes. So here's what I'm going to say to you, Jason, is I hope that you have massive amounts of success in your future as you continue to work hard and learn stuff, because then you'll understand. And I appreciate that you're in your whole process of learning. You'll understand how ridiculous of a statement that is, because in America, you want to be a success. The point of capitalism is to be able to make as much money as you possibly can and be able to do whatever you want with it, whether that's giving money to charity or buying multiple homes. That's the beauty of capitalism.
That's not quite my political ideology, I would say, though. I feel like it's just like the Christian. I am Christian. I believe very strongly in Christian values. It's the Christian to me that thinks like, I don't want to have multiple homes if I know that there's somebody sleeping in a tent.
Well, then, but then, Jason, hold on, Jason. So, but then what you can do is you can give your money away. You can give it to your church or a church or some sort of a charity that goes in it and they build homes for veterans and they build homes for homeless people. You don't have to keep all of that money if you don't want to. I want to go back to something else that you said. You said that Donald Trump, he doesn't know what it's like to be middle class. That's what you said. And so you're having a hard time wanting to vote for Donald Trump because he's doesn't know what it's like to be middle class. But I would also submit to you that Donald Trump, through his tax cuts, have actually done more for the middle class than Joe Biden has. I mean, if you look and if you look at, just Google this, Donald Trump tax cuts middle class, you are going to find a lot of articles that will tell you that Donald Trump's tax policies, regardless of what you hear from Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, that Donald Trump's tax cuts by far helped the middle class and the lower middle class than the rich people that the Democrats say that Donald Trump helped. That's number one. Number two is Kamala Harris wants to take away those tax cuts, the Donald Trump tax cuts. She wants to let those sunset. She wants to let those expire. When she does that, then do you know that more than likely, Jason, the amount of money that you pay in taxes will go up under Kamala Harris, not down? Because remember, and you're learning all this, so I appreciate you letting me talk to you about this. If you remember one thing, remember that Democrats favor high taxes and large government. There's a lot of bloat there. Republicans, by and large, favor low taxes and smaller government. Go ahead, and then I got to go.
Okay, yeah, sorry, and I don't mean to hold you too long either.
No, it's all good. Listen, your mind is being molded right now, and that's what I like to hear. I'm trying to help you with your future conservatism.
Exactly, and I appreciate that. I will say, though, on the point of, give money to an organization, give money to a charity, give money to whoever. What I will say, too, is I like the idea of having a say in where my money goes. I like that a lot. Sure. And that's why I'm not necessarily against the idea of taxes funding that sort of thing. I don't consider it to be socialism because we elect people who state where they're going to be placing our money. So I wouldn't necessarily call that socialism.
Jason, great conversation. Call me back tomorrow if you want. I got to take a break. Good luck in your studies. This is Red Eye Radio.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90-RED-EYE on Red Eye Radio.
$866-90 Red Eye is the phone number. My name is Dan Mandis, in for Gary and Eric on Red Eye Radio. You can always follow me, and I wish you would, on X at Dan Mandis Show. Also, you can find me on Facebook at Dan Mandis Show as well. I host a morning show in Nashville, Tennessee, which starts in about 3 minutes. You can find that at 99.7 WTN.com. Got a lot more straight ahead. And again, Gary and Eric, they return next Sunday night, Monday morning. Until then, I'll be filling in for you tomorrow and the next night as well. Got a lot more straight ahead on Red Eye Radio. And again, that phone number is 866-90-RED-EYE, 866-90-RED-EYE.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One.